I'm so glad to see you. It's great to be with you. And I hope you don't mind if I tell folks a little bit more about you. Is that okay?
Sure, please do.
Perfect. Reggie, we are so proud for you to be the Vice Chair of Equality Ohio and former Board Chair of Equality Ohio. You are currently a licensed social worker and the Director of Community Life. And what Community Life is, folks, take a look at it. It ensures that there are social and economic factors considered in affordable housing in order to make sure that those ventures are successful. And Reggie, you also have a small practice of psychotherapy focused on the intersection of LGBTQ and Black identity. And I am proud to share with our audience that you are soon to be part of the panel that you are moderating because you are running for Cincinnati Council in 2021 as an at-large member. So Reggie, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm going to pop out of the way while our wonderful panelists come on in.
Fantastic. Great. Awesome. Oh, I love everyone populating and popping up so I can see everyone's big faces. Oh my God, Justin, your background is fantastic.
Yeah, he wins.
I was in prepping for this. I was trying to think about backgrounds and like my Wi-Fi connection, and so I have this stained glass window behind me, and it gets lots of compliments. And my husband bought a beautiful orchid for this moment, so I'm trying to get my scenery together. Well, let's jump in. I have been so excited to have this conversation because one, I love having conversations with Black folks, Black excellence. And so, I've been ready for this. And I'm just going to go and I'm going to do a brief intro, giving, our viewers a little bit of background about you. So I'm going to start with Tavia Golonsky. Did I say it correctly? Tavia Golonsky?
It's Tavia, but I answer anything. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Tavia Golonsky, in addition to her stand-up comedy career, she's also our state representative in the 35th district, and we're really excited because Rep. Galonski was the sponsor of the Pride Month bill that we declared June Pride Month, and we are so excited for you doing that. So thank you. We also have Columbus City Council President Shannon Hardin. How are you? Glad to have you here.
Good to be with everybody.
Yes. Councilmember Hardin is a friend of Equality Ohio, and we were really appreciative of his work in helping to update Columbus's non-discrim code, and then including, which was I think the most important, the prohibiting of conversion therapy for minors. We also have New York City Council member Jeremy Blake in the house. And again, same work, friend of Equality Ohio, helping to update Newark's non-discrim code to use best practice language and then to be fully inclusive in the code. So thank you for that work. We have University Heights City Council member Justin Gould in the house with that fantastic background again. And also you guys, University Heights, hey, non-discrim club, 30th city in the state to join the club. So welcome and congratulations. And then last but not least, we have Dr. Akbar, who is absolutely. And then last but not least, we have Dr. Akbar, who is the Akron Board of Education Vice President. And Equality Ohio is really excited about your presence on the Board of Ed there, particularly because of your work and focusing your work through the lens of a racial justice lens and unpacking toxic masculinity and being an LGBTQ advocate. So thank you so much for your work and welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Great. So, we're really, the framing for this conversation, right, is we're thinking about race and race equity, right? And we're thinking about particularly what that means in the sphere of politics, and even more specifically being an elected official, right? And so our first question is, I want to talk about that. So you just always sort of keeping that in the back of your head. When we're having conversations about all policy related to race and policing and education and healthcare, I think it would be really important for our listeners to get an insight from your perspective about like, what don't folks realize when you're not an elected official, right? When you're not sitting, in City Hall or you're in the, the state chambers, like what are some of the things that aren't really, you wouldn't understand unless you were there. So I just want to go through it and talk about that. And then how does the recognition of those things interplay with how you legislate? So Rep. Golonsky, we can start with you. I'd love to hear your opinion.
Well, so many things. I mean, we could be here for hours, but one of the things that I think about is the general lack of respect that I personally experience as a Black woman, just walking around outside my house or going to the store or whatever. And I noticed that unless I have on sort of this whole mask of makeup and the smile and the lips and all that, pretty much I'm being relegated to kind of backseat. And so some interesting sort of stories in my life. My husband is white, and we were married 25 years ago, and we opened a bank account together. So you're going into banking. He would be able to go to that bank and withdraw money with no ID. We'd known these people for years, and 10 years in, to deposit money, I was required to give 2 forms of ID. You get that? So just those kind of experiences sort of every day remind you of, what's really going on here. And a lot of times you can ask questions, but you kind of already know what the deal is. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of, people call them microaggressions. I just call it waking up tired. And so those are some of my experiences, again, just being a regular person. But as soon as you put on either the mask or the accoutrement, either the button that says you're a state rep, then suddenly, people are paying more attention. But as you know, in the news, that doesn't always happen. And some of my sisters have had some unfortunate experiences with people saying, hey, are you staff? And nothing wrong with being staff, but if you're leading the meeting, it's an awkward question.
Absolutely. And so, Rep. Galonski, can you tell me about your experience then in the State House, right? Do you see some of those similar themes play out with your colleagues in the State House? Oh, sure.
One of my favorites is people not being aware of your credentials, the bullets you've got to back it up, if you will. Sorry to use that metaphor. It's wrong, I'm sure. But the point is people don't know your background, and they make a lot of assumptions. The big thing that happens with me is what I describe as the white men are talking sort of a session. So just, my background is that I was a juvenile court magistrate. I've been practicing law since 1995, actually in the field practicing. But it's so interesting when we get down to a real discussion about legislation, then there's a group of white males over in a corner having a full-on discussion, oftentimes about judicial matters. And I can usually kind of weigh in if they would just, ask me. So I've taken to actually making that comment, oh, white men are talking. Let me know when you need someone to weigh in. And that might sound rude, but I feel like I have to assert myself. And so those are the ways I do it. As you can see, I like to use humor, if I can, to sort of break the ice. But eventually you just have to kind of pull down on folks and let them know that, you're in the room and that you matter. So I have that happen literally every time I walk into Cap Square. Somebody is ready to discount me one way or the other. And then I just, I have to pull out the credentials. It's just the way it is.
I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Councilmember Hardin, how about you?
Well, thank you. This is such a dope panel to be a part of. Like, the best way to kind of close out my long week is to be with family on a Friday afternoon. For me, like, I think the most important thing for folks to know really is more specific to this moment, that we are in a moment that makes policy making different. I talk often about, or since Floyd and since demonstrations have made their way through all of our communities, that, the things that I'm saying now, it's not that I'm just now believing them. As an elected official, as city council president of a city of 900,000 people, we were trained, elected officials are trained to how you talk about policing. And Rep could probably talk about this as an attorney. I was always educated or schooled by like our city attorneys and folks. After a police shooting or something, or after a police involved event, you have to be very cautious as a city council member or city council president, because anything that you can say could be used against the city or to protect that officer. And so, you know, I was always like real cautious, even though we would like, you know, I see the same video that you see, and I'm a black male, and damn, of course I see what you, but I have to be cautious. I think what this moment has allowed is for us to throw caution to the wind. Like, people need to see us saying that what they see is real, what they feel is real, that we hear them, that we see them, and be damned with the concern that folks will be scared that we're putting our finger on the scale of justice. The whole damn scale of justice has been off. So we're just going to speak up now, and that's why this moment is so important, that we have to lean in, that we have to like hold us accountable. We can get more done in this moment than we've been able to do in decades. This is the kind of moment that we're in. And so like, I'm more committed, I'm more excited, I'm more fired up about what we're able to do, just because people took the streets, because we have the national attention, and politically because we have the support right now to get the big things done. So like, don't stop, don't fall back. Like, I'm swinging for the fences, and maybe if we come up short, oh well, but I believe this is my moment. I believe this is our moment as elected officials, as black folks, to really get, I mean, this will not last forever. This political moment will not last forever. So if we want it, man, we better go for it.
I appreciate it. And, you know, you said something, you said a lot that I really appreciate, but the thing that really sort of touched my heart was, and I've been using the phrase of radical reimagination, right? This radical reimagination of policies and process. And that tidbit, which I think is great, was that there's, you know, you all are operating in systems that coached you on how to respond to moments. And we're recognizing now that no, that was a world and a construct that we are not living in, and that coached response, right, is not actually what is going to move the needle. So I thought that was a beautiful insight. Thank you so much. Councilmember Blake, how about you?
Well, I just want to first say, you know, thank you to Equality Ohio, and you know, congratulations to you on 15 years of being an organization in our state. You know, that's wonderful, and that's really why we're here, to celebrate the work of Equality Ohio and everything they've done on behalf of LGBTQ plus community members. And so, thank you for doing what you do and being a leader in our state, and thank you for the opportunity to participate on this panel. I know my brother, President Hardin over there, so it's good to see him again, and nice to meet all the other panelists. And I guess my perspective is, you know, Newark, Ohio is east of Columbus, and so we're a city of 50,000 people, and so my perspective is probably much different than that. We're not coming from the urban lens as far as bigger city as a Columbus or a Cleveland or other communities, but I do see the urgency. And even here in Newark, Ohio, people are looking for us to hold us accountable as, you know, black leaders, black elected leaders, to wanting to get things done. Even here in Newark, you know, I hold the title of minority leader on our city council. And that title, minority leader, even holds even more in that I'm black, I'm gay. And so it's like, okay, where does this title go into so many different intersections of my life right now? And the biggest piece that I'm finding is that we just need to organize. And people need to get engaged in the decision-making process. And we have the power of telling our truths, telling our personal stories right now, and developing relationships with those stories and getting people energized. And it's not just a matter of just wanting to create another commission or another committee to study something. People are ready for action, as, you know, President Hardin alluded to earlier. It's really about wanting to, you know, we only have a certain number of years on our terms, and we have to get things done now. You know, so many times, even in Newark, Ohio, probably even more so than the other panelists, you know, it's like, oh, well, I can't really say too much about the police department because we need to keep the police department as a part of our city government. You know, I want them to respect me and see me as a resource. But at this moment in time, it's really a part of, we need change. We need change, positive change for the betterment of not just the Black community, but the whole community. And being a Black gay man in Newark, I mean, you just get all the marginalized groups. And as we advocate for our Black voices, we're also advocating for the other marginalized groups as well. And so, so I would just throw that out to the panel.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. Akbar, how about you?
Yes. So I echo everything that everyone else has said. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I see my name is spelled wrong on the screen, but it's NJ Akbar, by the way. But anyway, I will just say that I'm a Black, gay, Muslim man, right? I don't have the privilege of or luxury of believing that I have infinite amount of time to make change or to make something happen, right? So I don't have that luxury. I'm also short, so I've had to fight my entire life. And as a Black, gay, male, Muslim, who's an educator and dedicated as an educator since undergrad, I use that to my advantage because I have the knowledge of the educational system and structure that some other people don't. I'm also a PhD in education, race and culture specifically. And so I feel like, you know, such a time as this, there is some ordination, in my opinion, that I was placed in this position, even just for 4 years, to help guide us in our school in a different direction just right now. And so I think that if I was spending my time thinking about what's going to happen in 4 years, actually, yeah, 4 years from now, and whether or not I'm going to be reelected, then I shouldn't be reelected. I need to be able to do what I need to do to represent the people and the children in the city of Akron with the time that I have now, because I can't take for granted that I'll be reelected. I can't take for granted that we'll have the momentum. I can't take for granted that we'll have the votes. I can't take for granted that we'll have the intellectual know-how and fortitude to push and guide and steer the ship in a new direction.
All right, listen, you know what? I wish I had my organ and my tambourine right now. Listen, right? If I could sing, I might give you a Councilmember Gould, how about you? Let's hear from you and share your perspective.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I have to apologize. I was on my iPad, and my iPad did not like you, so I could not hear anything you've said for the past 5 minutes. Oh, no. So we're talking about taking advantage of this moment, right?
We're talking about taking advantage of this moment, yes, and that's been a central theme. But the original question was just from your perspective and your work, talking about what are some things that maybe folks who are not elected officials may not realize about the work and realize about this moment, and really just thinking from your perspective.
So I think one of the things when it comes to the work that I think is often hidden is how much of this work happens in committee. And when I say that, I say that to the organizers out there. I say that to the people who are showing up and speaking, that by the time this gets to a council meeting, the majority of this work has already been done. So if you are here to make sure that your voice is heard, to make sure that your contribution is welcomed into this process, the tip that I would give from this other side of the table now is that show up to the committee meetings. Let your voice be heard there. I think that it's exciting when people show up there because people are kind of taken aback that members of the community have come to join us. So I think that would be one of the things that's a little bit different about this moment now that may not be seen. I think also, and I'll just echo what I've heard about the breaking of this ice that was around certain topics. We can't talk about the police union. We can't talk about reallocation of resources to different services to the community. We can't talk about who gets access to our police cameras because those are just off the table. And I personally feel emboldened now to speak about those things that weren't able to be said before. And I think that's important because one of the things that you're balancing is your ability to get things done. And if certain members of your administration or your police force, your council won't have anything to do with you and won't work with you in this work, it's very difficult to get anything done for good or otherwise. So this moment, I think, is bringing a new group of people together in a common voice, in a common work. And I think also bringing newcomers like me around. I've been on council for 6 months. I might get reelected. I might not run. I'm getting tired already. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity to bring people in who don't have an agenda, who don't care if they are reelected, who are here in a moment to do this work and will either move on at God's will or stay around to continue it. Absolutely.
I appreciate that perspective. And, you know, and what I love about conversation and how it can just turn organically. I want to shift to talking about police and policing because it has come up before, and it is, you know, it's not the elephant in the room. I mean, it is there with us, you know, very explicitly. And so I want to talk about the idea of defunding the police. Now, we know that this idea of defunding police is not new, right? So we've had, you know, activists and folks and scholars writing about this for decades. And, you know, I would say, from my conceptualization of it, is that it is a spectrum of interventions, right? And so what I would like to do is for each of you to speak to the concept of defunding the police from your perspective, how you're dealing with it and how you're wrestling with it, because I want to share. So I am a third generation Democrat, South Side of Chicago, and a progressive, right? And sometimes I get nervous expressing sort of my honest reaction to about things, because I was also raised in a kind of like a socially conservative household, right? Like respectability politics ruled the day. You know, like no pierced earrings, you know, very straight ball fade, you know, pressed, this, that, and the other, you know, like grew up this way. And so when I first encountered the concept of defunding the police, I was like, what? What are you talking about? You know? And then when I thought about it and I read and I became educated, I was like, oh, this is what we're speaking about. And so knowing that I had someone who is, you know, a very progressive person, I had that kind of original sort of knee-jerk reaction to it. I would love to hear you all discuss this from, you know, in your work. And I know in some of the cities that you're in that you guys are sort of like, you know, neck deep in it. So if we could start with Dr. Akbar, let me hear from you.
Yes, so I'm actually doing a research study right now, and literally at noon we were talking about this. So defunding the police, in my opinion, is just like you said, it's an array of things. And so I think about it in this way. If you have a mother at her house and arguing with a neighbor about something their kid did, do you want to bring in the army to deal with that? If you have someone just sleeping outside of a Wendy's, do you want the cavalry to come out and deal with that? If you just have someone who has a thought about, you know, maybe mental health issues, displaying mental health issues, do you want to send in the brigade to deal with that? No, it doesn't make sense. And so, but that's what we do when we send police with guns and into these type of situations. And so what I understand, and I want to thank Imokai Okolo for helping me understand this, but what I understand it is we're actually wanting to defund the police and take those resources to send out social workers when someone's sleeping outside of a Wendy's. We want to send out a counselor when someone has mental health issues. You want to send out a mediator to work with that mother and her neighbor arguing about what's going on. You don't want to send gunmen out. You don't want to send those who are trained to protect us and impose lethal recourse and consequences to those type of situations. And I grew up in Detroit on the West Side. Just the fact you have a police officer with a gun coming in your situation elevates the situation and puts me on my defenses. And so we want to eliminate that.
Yeah.
That's the best way.
Yeah. Council President Hardin, I would love for you to weigh in. And I just wanted to say that, over the course of this time, I, followed you on social media and sort of your response. And I was particularly struck by that moment where your role as an elected official and you as a person was tested in the time when you and Congresswoman Beatty and then the commissioner, right, were pepper sprayed. And so I just had a real sort of empathic moment there of being like, I could not imagine being there at all of those intersections. So yeah. I just wanted to take a moment to say that to you.
Thank you. No, I mean, that moment was important for me, truthfully, personally. God put me there so that I could have that moment. And I've joked that it's funny how a little pepper spray can clear your vision. And I say that because I'm not a traditional protester. I grew up on the other side. I grew up, around the table. Like, let me be the rational one that I'm very close to the activist community in Columbus. And they one of the things they might have heard me say before is like, we all have our roles here. You guys go stand on my desk. So I'm on the other side, like, okay, let's move it forward. In that moment though, I realized that no, we don't have separate roles. At the end of the day, I'm a Black man, and they did not see me as a council president. They didn't see even our congresswoman as a congresswoman. They saw our Black skin, and so it united us all together in this fight. So our roles, everybody has to step up to this conversation around defunding the police. The doctor said it right. I mean, he explained the premise of what I think all rational folks now can agree on. And again, I thank the activist community for getting us to this space where we can even accept this part of the conversation. Now, this is where, again, some of my activist friends might be like, Shannon, I don't think it's that necessary for me, though, because I'm still an elected official and a policymaker to own the words defund the police. If I agree 100% with what Doc just said, and I'm going about the work of doing it right now, bro, don't hold me to, because the truth is, with 900,000 people, I gotta actually get this done. And everybody is not going, I had the conversation, my husband is white, and his family's conservative. I went up to visit my in-laws the other day. I knew that I was going to be the first Black person they've seen since these protests broke out. So I was already just ready for that. But she came up to me like, my mother-in-law, what about this defund the police? I promise you it took, and this is a Republican woman who does not around Black folks. It took less than 2 minutes for me to use almost the exact same talking points that Doc just said about, if my elderly neighbor who has dementia is fighting with her son, do we really need a police officer to come out, or could we have a social worker? That conversation took 1.5 minutes, and she said, "Oh, that makes sense." Mm-hmm. So listen to what I'm saying to my activist folks. So don't burn me down because I haven't said I'm defund the police, bruh. Listen to me. Like we're going about this work. We got the people there now. We can do this. Don't take the heat off me. Ask for these specific things. When you're talking about civilian review board, now everybody's saying we want civilian review board. Make sure that you're holding us accountable that we want civilian review boards that have subpoena power. Like you can ask for the harder stuff, but we don't need to be fighting inward if I don't use the words defund the police. Like, let me tell you, I got my pen and my notepad out. I'm taking notes. Right, I'd be like, "Oh, this is a talking point here." No, this is great. Yeah. This is exactly great. It gives the context. Mm-hmm. Representative Galonski, how about you?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Again, I could say so much. you know, I had people coming from me from the far left, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that. And what I wanted to say to them was, you know, I practically grew up with Marcus Garvey. I'm the oldest one in this group, okay? And so my stepfather grew up in a Muslim home, and but I'm Catholic. So, you know, we had to give reports every night about the news, and it couldn't be anything unpleasant. It had to be factual. And so, you know, this man was Harvard educated, and this is how we rolled. So when people try to kind of come at me about what I'm presenting, et cetera, and who I am, you know, as a state rep, I always want to go back to, let's try to remember who and what I represent. And I'm with you, NJ. So what if I'm not reelected, right? That's one thing. But the other part is, I wonder about who would be here if I wasn't. Would they have the breadth of the experience, the breadth of the, you know, the education and so forth to bring forward and have this voice? A lot of people don't like this about me, but I'm the mediator. You know, from my days as a magistrate, from my days as a flight attendant, we're going to get along, okay? So I have that in me, that spirit of wanting folks to be able to, you know, come together. I'll continue the conversation all day long. But when I said I was willing to talk with and work with the FOP, people were just reneging on my black card. You know, just get that girl's black card and take that away. But what I'm trying to say to people is I'll talk with anyone. I'll work with anyone. I'm married to a prosecutor. So the police are right here in my house, okay? But on the other hand, you know, I don't want my son mistreated. You know, my son sat at my dinner table the other night, and he said, you know, I had 3 really great interactions with the police. And he said, you know, everything was copacetic. And I was like, this is great. You know, no problems. The police are cool. He said, but then that last time when they drew down guns on me, threw me to the grass, he said, now I got a whole new feeling about it. And so what he reminds me of is I've never had that experience, but that came to our house, you know, that type of policing. And again, with his dad being a prosecutor, right? So it's coming at you no matter which way you want to come. But I got to admit to you all, as the older one in this group, seniority matters, is that, you know, I did a lot of growing up over the last 5 weeks. All right. I did a lot of looking in, and all of you young people have encouraged me to be, you know, to be faithful to the message and to be able to stand forward and say some things that I never would have said before. And, you know, Dr. Akbar knows this. I represent a huge neighborhood with a bunch of police officers and law enforcement. And so literally on my back, in my front, everywhere I go, folks are around me trying to kind of keep my voice down. But I'm not going to do that because we are in a moment. I was so grateful that Councilman Hardin pointed that out, that if not now, when? And so I am proud to say that, you know, I never thought I would be doing this, but just last week, you know, we sent out a bill requesting to be done with chokeholds. And if you'd have said 5-6 weeks ago I was going to be in charge of ban the chokehold bill, I would have said no way, but I couldn't wait to get it out. And I knew I needed to be ahead of it before somebody else jumped on that message who couldn't carry it. So thank you all for having me. And, you know, I'm just delighted to be a part of the conversation. But I do like to admit that sort of a conservative upbringing and a way of people kind of mentoring me, if you will, strongly from the outside. Oh, you want to be careful. You don't want to say that, right? But I'm ready to have every conversation.
You know, what I appreciate about in your comments is that this idea of being an elected official and growth. I personally get very frustrated when sometimes constituents and just folks in general feel like, you know, our electeds have to have this position in this moment, right there, right now. And it's like, no, like folks have to have an opportunity to grow, right? You know, like my uncles, I'm very close to my family, and my family came in, my husband and I, we got married 11 years ago, it'll be 11 years in August, and, you know, grew up a very religious family. And my uncle now I have great relationships with them. They weren't there. We had to have a whole lot of conversation, right? We had a whole lot of family prayer, but they got there, right? And isn't that the what's important is about growing? So I do appreciate you bringing that up. Councilmember Gould, how about you?
You know, as elected officials, we're in the service delivery business. From trash collection to snow removal, I'm here to serve the people that elected me. And so the phrase I use, I find to be most productive when discussing this topic is reallocation of funding. So to the point different communities have different needs. You know, my fire department here in University Heights needs to be able to access third floor apartments that may not have emergency staircases. So we need a very long ladder in order to reach that. We had a family that died because we didn't have that resource before. So we reallocated that and have a very nice new ladder truck. City of Bay Village, same position from the city of Cleveland, but west instead of east of as University Heights is. They're on the water. Their fire department has a jet ski. My fire department has no need for a jet ski. So when you look at different communities, they have different needs and they need to allocate their resources differently. So to Dr. Akbar's point, I think also when you're looking at that Wendy's situation, a person who may be having housing interruption who's outside of Wendy's, the second thing that I'm in the business of is representing the values of my community. And so when I ask somebody who lives in my community, do your values support moving somebody along on a cold fall day when they evening or even a freezing winter evening when they don't have a place to stay, when they haven't had a warm meal in days? The answer is no. So I say, what do your values support? Well, they support giving this person access to a shelter, giving this person a warm meal. We have plenty of those in this area. And so when you ask, okay, well, would you like to allocate a police officer to go do that work who's just going to move them along? Or do you want somebody who's trained to deliver community resources to educate about the opportunities that are available in our community that we pay for through our tax dollars and through our nonprofit contributions, to connect this person who's in an emergent need that evening with the services that this community provides? The answer is yes, of course I want to do that. That matches my values. So we reallocate that police officer because, frankly, taking it, then the law and order side of people also speaks. You are less safe when one of your officers is dealing with a person at Wendy's if you need to call 911 because somebody is breaking into your home, because you hear somebody downstairs. Do you want that officer across town? Or can a social worker deal with that situation for less money than an officer would and still have those safety forces that you rely on in this community? So I think the idea of reallocation, of mirroring values, and of highlighting the benefit that reallocation brings to a community is a very productive way around that.
Absolutely, yeah. Councilmember Blake, how about you?
Well, I guess I would bring to the conversation, I agree with many of the panelists, is the concept of allyship, having allies within the community, and even framing this discussion in the viewpoint of poverty. How are we dealing with poverty in our communities? Because in Newark, about almost a third of our population is in poverty. And so if we're talking about allocating resources to individuals so that they can be successful in their life, I want to look at what are we doing to help with mental health? What are we doing with drug addiction? What are we doing with public transportation, safe housing, making sure that slumlords are not taking advantage of tenants? And so all these issues related to defunding the police really comes to what is our expectation of a police officer, and should that expectation be to a social worker or to a counselor or to some other professional? And so just calling 911 shouldn't be the catch-all for all of our society's issues. And so I really try to frame my conversation with the people I represent in the frame of, if we lift up people out of poverty and into being able to get them a better job and higher wages, then that's going to help all of us. And just the point of, Newark is 93% white. And so the Black community here in Newark is very small. And so we need allies in order to get anything done in Newark. And so that's a big piece about getting, being an elected official is my constituents are going to hold me accountable, but I need to get things done and accomplished. So those allies have to be there.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, and you brought something up for me in thinking about what are our expectations, because I think that even in this conversation around defunding police, I hear a lot. So I'm a licensed independent clinical social worker, and social workers are added to this conversation around alternatives to policing. And I have to say that it's like, yeah, you can send some social workers there, but we also have to unpack some white supremacy thinking, because you can take some social workers there and they can jack up a situation just like the police, right? So it just keep it 100, right? And so that it is like, not only is it about diversifying folks who are helping our brothers and sisters in harm's way, but also the orientation around that intervention. Right. That I think
can I just also say to that point, though, I think that you bring up something like right now, there is so much attention on policymakers and policy making from folks who maybe have not been this close to it in a while or ever. And so it's really imperative, I believe, for policymakers, as we're having this conversation, as we have these new eyes on us and that are that have all the passion of real live experiences, that we are being very transparent and being very upfront and being very clear about what we're saying, when we're saying we're going to do it, and really laying that out, because it's really easy to get the Twitter hit where you get a couple and say the thing, but you can't let people down in this moment. Like if you what I would rather do is lay out that the reality and how we need to move through this. To your point, if we need to change hire 50 social workers to do that new role, that's going to take some time. We need to make sure they're skilled, and we need to make sure they're trained correctly for how to work in the urban community. And that might not happen in this first budget, not all of it, but watch, that we're gonna have to pull this back, and maybe it's a 2-year budget type thing or 3-year budget type thing. But we got to be upfront and we got to be like clear and transparent, because we right now have credibility, and maybe it's because God bless us with this brown skin right now that got us a little bit in this conversation. But people are going to expect us to do what we're saying right now. And so I just, for elected officials, black and white right now, be real clear, be very transparent, and tell the truth about what this is going to take, because folks are watching. They're going to hold us accountable.
Absolutely. Rep. Galonski.
Yeah, I really appreciate that from Councilman Hardin, because you have everything I need to know. I learned as a flight attendant. You got to manage expectations. If you're telling people we're going to Honolulu when they were trying to go to Switzerland, we're going to all have a problem, right? Or maybe some people would be happy about it. But you're absolutely correct on managing expectations. Nothing happens fast at the State House. You hear me? Nothing. Unless you're in the majority, the super majority, and you decide to have 4 hearings in a week. But me trying to get a hearing about what I'm trying to do, that's not realistic. And so what we try to talk to people about is the steps. So I love to lay out the steps for people, letting them know that, first of all, we need to elect us meaning Democrats, into some kind of to break that super majority. So first steps both, are y'all registered to vote? And so I really appreciate you pointing that out, because every single time I left my house to go to a protest, I was mad if I forgot to bring the voter registration stuff, because we got to get people focused. You can, like President Hardin said, you can stay mad, you can do a bunch of things, but people are going to expect accountability from us, and I'm here for it. So thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that. And so we are at about 6 minutes until we have to wrap up. And this conversation has flowed so organically, and it leads right into this third question, right? But I want us to do a little bit of like a rapid round answering. But there's this idea, right? So you guys are talking about process, right? So there's this process piece, and the process is really informed process and perception, right? And so this idea that we open this call saying Black Lives Matter. And, and from our conversations and the work that you do, we know that this is a value that many of you hold, but not everyone in your constituency base holds that value, right? And so what does it mean? And talk to us a little bit about that conflict of having these personal values, and maybe it's not a conflict, right? I won't even frame it that way. These personal values that inform why you're running, why you're doing this work. And then how you navigate that space, navigate having a personal value, but also being a representative of the folks that you serve. So let's start with you, Councilmember Blake.
I as you were saying that, I'm thinking of more ways, and especially coming from where I'm really a true minority in this community, is to get others like me, other Black people in leadership positions. Since the George Floyd murder, we have seen a resurgence of wanting to reactivate our local NAACP. We have seen a resurgence of wanting to start other nonprofits related to social justice and racial justice work. And we have seen young people, high schoolers, leading protests in our community. Now, we have had hundreds of people attending different protests. It's just been a wonderful experience to be, raw, to recognize that there are raw emotions right now, but then also wanting to get action and wanting to make sure that there are leadership opportunities where we could plug people into. Like, hey, now we need a president who's going to be the local president of the NAACP. We need someone to run get involved with our city human relations commission to serve on these appointed boards and these other commissions within our city government. And so even the Juneteenth celebration, Newark has not had a Juneteenth celebration in years. And here now there's talk of having the annual Juneteenth celebration. Yeah. And so just getting Black people in leadership positions so that I'm not the only one. I don't want to be the only one in my community where something happens with the Black community, they point to Councilman Blake. We need other Black leaders to step up. And that's really what I recognized over the last several weeks is people just really wanting to do that.
Absolutely. Dr. Akbar, how about you?
Yes. So for me, it's not a conflict at all. I do racial justice and equity work every day in my job, in my research, everything. So it is not a conflict. I say to anyone who has a problem with us promoting that racism is a public health crisis and actually doing something about it instead of just making a blanket statement, because a condemnation statement doesn't do anything if you don't have actions. I say, what are your morals? What are your values? If you believe that all people have the right to have a quality education, then we have to look at who's being excluded from that. And if you have a problem with that, then unelect me.
Boom. Period. Councilmember Gould, how about you?
I think personally, in University Heights, so the community I serve, we're a very diverse community that's less than 2 square miles. So we have, in that small little area, I have John Carroll University, a Jesuit school. I have several Orthodox Jewish temples and a yeshiva. I have lower income people on my side of town, and we all live together. An Orthodox Jewish woman was the person who asked me to run for council. And when we needed to replace somebody that was coming on council, one of the candidates spoke about being very faith-based. And as members of the LGBTQ community, we know that faith and religion have done harm to members of our community. There's a lot of pain there sometimes. I had to check myself and check my biases and say, I can work with this person, and this person can still be invested in my basic human rights. When we went to pass the LGBT inclusive employment non-discrimination ordinance in University Heights, I had that councilwoman's support. I had support from the Orthodox Jewish councilwoman. I had support from every member of my council and my mayor. And so I think one of the lessons that I learned there was that I can hold my values and I can support my values. But when I identify the foundation of my values, that we should be treated with respect, that we should have the opportunity to work, we should have the opportunity to have housing, we should have the opportunity to love who we choose. Those are universal no matter which community you represent. And when I identify those commonalities, I am more productively able to work towards a solution. And so I think, the other thing that I'll say, and it's a bit controversial, I think, is the idea that the support of my basic human rights should not be determined by who I vote for at the ballot box. And so I think the work that Equality Ohio can help us with is to remove the work that we're doing towards equality from the silo of being in University Heights, Ohio, or Newark, Ohio. What good ideas can I learn from the State House? What good ideas can I learn from Columbus or Cincinnati? And so I think that that work of bringing us all together and holding us accountable for the advancement of our common human rights is the work that Equality Ohio is doing so well. And I hope they continue in the future.
Well, that wasn't controversial at all. I thought you were getting ready to blow up my talk. I was getting ready to be like, wait, hold on, what you about to say? I only got 5 minutes left. I wasn't saying nothing crazy. But no, we are right there with you. So with our last minute, we're going to do a 30-second. I want to hear from Council President Hardin and Rep. Golonsky. But Council President Hardin, tell me, weigh in on.
Everybody else has so eloquently said it. I think I'm somewhere between Councilmember Gould and Dr. Akbar in terms of we have to lead with our values anyways. That's why we're here, because folks elected us to be young, gay, black, and all those things. And so those are my values. I have to do the political work of convincing folks that we need to go this direction. But I don't see it either or. I don't trade off. Like, the values are what I have to express to get the thing through. Representative.
Thank you so much. And again, just like I thought I would, I learned so much from all of you. But I just want to say a happy birthday to Equality Ohio. And ally is a verb. So here, I'm in Trump country. Let's just be real. I'm sitting here in Trump country. Trump won my Barberton in 2016. When I ran in 2018, I won every precinct in Barberton. So people see me at a parade and go, we love Trump, we love you. I don't know what it means, but I know that I can still work in this space and affect change. And so I have a different perspective from a lot of the folks here, but that doesn't mean I'm not working and active. I proudly go out and speak my values and then put them into action as far as legislation. But I'm thrilled to be here and to remember that ally is a verb. Thank you.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.